It always boggles my mind knowing that Saban didn't want his franchise to grow. After buying it back with Samurai, it literally stayed exactly the same. And I know that a lot of people will turn around and say, but that's also Nickelodeon. Yes, Nickelodeon also fucked it over, but you think that with Saban having a vast majority of control over his franchise, he would have turned around and said, hey, let's actually fix this and let's actually do a lot more with it. But no, he didn't. Now, a lot of people have said that Power Rangers has never grown, and I will pretty much argue with that because I do think the show was growing. Everything from Mighty Morphin going upwards, the show started to kind of grow. But I think it's when it hit Samurai, that's when it just kind of stopped. Now, we need progression. The show needs to grow up with people because they're the ones doing it. And I figured that at least we knew where we were going to some degree. Now, as much as I really don't like Turbo, I think the second half of Turbo with TJ and all the others kind of started pushing the show in the direction of where it was. And I can't really remember most of it. I think maybe they stopped the whole bomb thing that was just constantly a massive big thing, which again felt really, really weird. And again, the whole thing with Bulk and Skull just made me not really want to watch it because for some strange reason they were turned into monkeys. But we know that Paul Schreier and Jason Narvi said that they were burnt out. They didn't want to be in it anymore and they felt tired. And you just kind of think that maybe rather than have them turn into monkeys and do ADR, you would then turn around and go, hey, do you want some time off? That would have been the best thing. You know, a season without them, I don't think would have ruined it. I think for me personally, when watching Turbo, and this is not turning into Turbo Run, but I feel like watching that part really put me off the entire thing because I didn't want to watch it. And again, Justin as well, didn't like Justin. But when you look at the second part of it, the show grows. It actually starts kind of maturing and going a little bit forward. And that's how you see Power Rangers in general. So when people say that Power Rangers never really grew, I'll disagree and say it actually kind of did all the way through. We just have been focusing on the wrong parts. Over time, the series got darker. I've done a few videos talking about this, so please go check them out. I think they're pretty decent. But the show started to kind of progress all the way through the second half of Wild Force, probably all the way to Samurai, but then that's when it stopped. That's when it went back and said, hey, let's go look at nostalgia because that's what it was. But when you kind of mix Samurai together, it didn't work. Like, I can understand, and I'll probably always say this, that I understand the first part of Saban buying it back. He wanted the Mighty Morphin theme tune because that's what people wanted, and I could wholeheartedly stand by that. But when it was used constantly after, it got boring, it got the samey, and it just wasn't the best. And I'm so glad that they got rid of the, like, was it Troy, Gia, like Jaden, or whatever it was, all the way through where they would just shout their names. I think that when Samurai came, it just degressed. That was the main thing it was. I generally couldn't stand it because it just wasn't great. And then even when you look at, say, Dino Charge and that, they weren't that great seasons. They were better than most, but at times it was just really boring. When you look at other franchises, let's look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That, obviously, when I grew up, was one of the best things that I absolutely loved more than anything. But when it came into other seasons, I stopped watching because my tastes had changed of TV programs. I never really wanted to continue. I absolutely love the original ones that I grew up with. But when I kind of look back at, like, say, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, anything other than that, I find that they grew with the audience. Like, they kind of stuck around and said, hey, we're going to go for this one. But in theory, they grew. They were able to kind of analyze what was the next step. And still, you're able to have an enjoyable cartoon. I don't know what some of the newer ones are like, but from what I've seen so far, I would say that, yeah, they grew with that audience because that's what they were intended for. Power Rangers stuck in the 90s, and I don't think it's ever kind of moved past this. Now, this could also mean that people in general have never been able to see Power Rangers as something completely different. They see it as the spandex stuff from the 90s. They laugh at it, they mock it, they love it, they hate it. They do whatever they do. But Power Rangers never grew past that, and it makes me wonder why. Why would you want to stay in the 90s? Because, hey, your toys aren't flying off the toy shelves like they did with Mighty Morphin. They didn't. You know, I could probably see maybe up to Zeo that they were still being sold out everywhere. But now when you go into, like, your local Target or Walmart or anything like that, Power Rangers is probably going to be there all the time. No one's buying it because no one cares. And the same thing is over here in the UK. Probably there are some toy shops that don't really want to stock it because they're just going to be peg warmers. Back in the day of Samurai and stuff, like when they moved on, and this is something that I spoke to Greg at Bandai when he worked there, they basically had, like, you could be running into Dino Charge and then the toy shops would still be having Samurai because toy shops weren't selling them properly. They were too expensive. You know, look at the Lion Fortress. I saw a photo the other day and literally for $5 you could have bought the Lion Fortress sword. There were not thousands, but there were at least maybe like 20, 30 of them not moving. And if you can't sell that toy for $5, there's something. But when I was speaking to Greg back in the day at Morphicon, I said, like, what are you going to do? And he just said, right, I'm coming over in the next couple of weeks and I'm going to basically be putting in a thing where we take all the stuff off from Bandai, from like Samurai and all that, and just put new toys in there. He then left, and that was a big thing for me. Like, I was like, damn, he knew what he wanted with the brand. But when you think about it, if the show hasn't been able to move past the 90s, toys aren't flying off the shelves, you know, back then, what are you doing with this brand? Why are you constantly making it so you want to stay in the 90s? Because nostalgia is fine, but when you're trying to reach a new audience, and again, you're going for people my age, it just doesn't work. We're not going to buy every single toy. You know, we're not going to continue watching the entire brand, but you need new people to come in to kind of keep this brand alive. Otherwise, it's just dying off. So let's take Super Sentai. I don't normally like comparing Super Sentai to Power Rangers because we suddenly get all these people coming in and going like, yeah, it's so much better. I'm not talking about that. But when we look at the comparison of how they deal with Super Sentai, I don't think majority of the time they keep reusing a season. Probably maybe like Don Brothers and Zenkaiger. But when you look back, the Japan moves on straight away. They instantly move across and go, oh, hey, guess what? Yeah, we are going to do a new series. We're going to make sure that the old toys from the entire year are nowhere to be seen, or we're going to sell them off at a very low price, and then people buy them. But then when they move on, they have things ready for, you know, maybe a month before release, a couple of weeks before release or whatever. But the way that I see things now, Hasbro don't do any of this sort of stuff. And Saban at the time didn't do anything like that. Bandai just literally were like, oh yeah, maybe someone will buy a Lion Fortress sword that literally was shit. No one gave a shit about, you know, other things like Megazords that no one wanted, and they stayed there, like the variants that they did for, like, say, Dino Charge. So when I kind of think that Saban just wanted the nostalgia look, that was it. That's all they want. And again, if you're going to be stuck in the 90s, you're not going to move forward and your brand's just going to die down. And we've seen it being cancelled almost multiple times. And luckily, just luckily, Power Rangers has survived. Going back to Nickelodeon, yeah, I don't think it worked at all. I feel like they ruined the whole flow of it. I feel like their ways of saying like, hey, if you want this on our network, you have to follow these certain rules. And obviously the Saban Bible as well did not help it, and it just ruined the whole thing. So for me personally, I'm not a big fan, and I just generally think that Saban really kind of kept things in the 90s, and that I think has almost ruined the brand to the point where nobody really kind of takes things seriously anymore. Now, I do think that Hasbro are changing things and really trying to pull things out, say, hey, this didn't work, maybe we need to move forward with the brand. But from what I kind of see is they're slowly, or if not falling into the Mighty Morphin trap, where it's just, hey, let's just focus on Mighty Morphin and that's it. Again, people want more. They want other seasons celebrated. And when you're just going over one, it doesn't always work out. So I'm going to leave it there. What are your thoughts with this? Do you think that Saban kept it purposely back for like Mighty Morphin and kind of wanted to capture that? What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments if you like this sort of content and you'd like to hear and see more. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, turn on all notifications. And if you want to check out the channel membership, that would be absolutely fantastic. I am going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching and listening. I'm going to see you in the next video. I completely messed that ending up. Anyway, catch you in the next video. I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to shout out Kimono Cat. Your help does go a long way to support the channel, and if you want to consider helping the channel, then links to my Patreon as well as the channel members are listed below.
あらあら、チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。